So what do you think the most important thing you look back at and learn about yourself is?
I think what I learned about myself is I wish when I wasn't in a great place, I would just go away and maybe coach like an under 15, kid or under 17, in our team, go and, give back by doing coaching or do something else. Take the conversation away from myself and by helping others. And then it helps me to then when I've, when I'm exhausted and I've spent expend all that energy on just helping other people, then when I'm back to myself, I think, how do I feel now? Do I
Mm.
feel better? Do I feel like all of that kind of stuff that was in my mind has kind of like just gone away, and I feel a lot better. And sometimes by giving to others and interacting and that congregation of people, they help to heal you, you help to heal each other, and then you just feel better without having that internal dialogue within yourself and trying to maybe work out what is going on today.
It's interesting because I feel like the narrative of conversation a lot is focused on giving, and I don't know. I wonder if also it's a way to deflect off yourself a little bit. Do you think?
Absolutely, this is
So
my whole
like, yeah,
strategy.
like if it's okay to ask you that, I think it's just really interesting because a lot of
Yeah.
it is like giving, and I wish I could give, and but I wonder if that's also a way to deflect on away from how you are feeling sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my strategy. So, I must say, Charlie, you're an intelligent girl, and you've obviously know how to, you've interviewed a lot of people, and you've worked out my strategy. It is, when I don't feel great, I give to others, and I help them out. And afterwards, that conversation that I had with, how I was feeling actually gets eliminated. That's what I found. And it comes back from my younger days, when in Sikhism we call something called seva, voluntary work, and we have a lot of like they call it the British Voluntary Army. I think Ross Kemp did this amazing documentary on the food banks, and it comes back in Sikhism. We have this principle of voluntary, work, helping others, and it's very much part of by helping others, you're helping yourself. Without having to go through the sort of internal dialogue that's happening with you, you have this faith that if I help others, I have that faith by helping others, I'll feel happy and I'll feel great. And there is something about, I don't know what it is, every human being, you feel a lot happier when you're helping others. You feel a lot happier when you're cooking for others. When I went on MasterChef and I started to become a really good cook, I like cooking. I like cooking for others and seeing what it's good for them. And you feel so much better for it. Now, that's a question I want to ask you. Why is it that human behavior by giving to others, they feel better? Why is it we're all built that way?
That's a good question. I think I don't know. It was interesting because I was listening to you talk a lot about giving there. And I think sometimes it's a distraction from ourselves, like you said, from that voice in our head and that narrative in our head. I think that it helps us feel a sense of purpose. And I think a sense of purpose is really, really important. And I think when people, I don't know whether you can relate to this in your cricket career, did you struggle when you were struggling? Did you then start to question or lose your sense of identity and who you were and your sense of purpose because you had this trajectory where you were so successful? You said, people were putting masks on that represented you. You became a bit of a cult hero, and then things went a little bit bad for you and you were struggling, and then you were almost like, I don't know, you tell me, did you start to lose your sense of purpose almost? And I think that's why giving's so powerful, because I think it makes you feel like you're giving something, you have a purpose for your life, like that's what you're here for. I think it makes people feel good when they see somebody smile. Like, if I, so even on this conversation, like if, and I don't know, you weren't smiling, and like I want to make sure that even making this, that our conversation helps other people, right? Like, why do I want to do that? Probably because sometimes because I want people to know that it's okay to feel rubbish sometimes, to tell yourself you're rubbish, to have that dialogue. And it's actually really more common than we care to talk about. And I think a lot of the time our struggles are far worse when we are in isolation. So that's why I do this podcast. But then I think it also helps me in a way, because it helps me release some of my own struggles. And in knowing that I can pass it on to somebody else, maybe it helps me know that my story is useful for somebody else. So then
I,
throwing it back to you. So did you feel like you were maybe losing your sense of self and purpose?
Look, I think it's more the question of the sense of peace and happiness within yourself, and that loneliness is a great, term, because, I think loneliness is one of the factors of, mental health issues. And that's why when I talk about religion, faith, I go to, let's say, my, Sikh temple as a place of congregation. In place of congregation, in place where there's a lot of people there, what it does, it gives you the opportunity to help others, and you can help in many forms. You can be by listening, you can listen to someone else, help by advice, help by, doing some voluntary work. So that sense of, congregation, or, you look at every sort of place, like the church, mosque, mandir, whatever you want to say it, they're all places of congregation. And you kind of look at it and you kind of think, well, they all are built from the same kind of cloth, really. There's people there, they all come together, they worship their own faith, and through that everyone actually feels better. So again, it takes you away from loneliness, doesn't it? And you look at how science is telling you what mental health issues are. One of the factors is loneliness, and the opposite of that is congregation. So that's why I think, yeah, I'm a great believer that, spirituality, faith, all of these things are one of many avenues, to feel happy and peace within yourself.
So did you feel lonely?
I felt isolated, and the more isolated I feel, it's two ways. There's a flight response or a fight response. And I had my PT trainer, who was an ex-boxer, professional boxer, and we used to do boxing, and he goes, the more I do boxing with you, the more of a fighter you are. But when I take you out of the boxing ring, you're a very calm, relaxed, just a nice person to be around. But there's no sense of, aggression and all that. But your aggression comes out, in a boxing ring. So me, when I got lonely, my denial was even stronger. It'll be the more lonely I got, the more I had these talks of everything's fine, I'm strong, and I ended up being this, instead of a nice person, a monster. It's like a fireball walking around, and I'm the fireball. People can see the fire around me. No one wants to be near me because they're thinking, I go near that fireball, I'm going to get my hands burned. And the people who love and care for you, they're like, I want to help this person. He's on fire. Monty is on fire right now. How do we pour water over him so he calms and he's okay? But he doesn't want to be poured water over him. He doesn't want the help, because he's telling the world he is fine. But I'm on fire right now. And that's there's two responses. There's the other one where you're in your room isolated and everything's dark and you're switching off reality, or the other way where you're just lit in fires in society, and you're ended from Monty to a monster, and that's when I realized that, gosh, I need a way of getting balance back in my life.
But that was just your way of coping. How does that make you feel now when you talk about yourself like that?
It makes me feel so good because it's the truth. It's the honest truth. I look at the mirror. This was the truth. I'm facing up to my truth. It's like when you have onions, each layer you just take off, and you get to the core. This was my truth. My truth may not be the same as someone else's truth, but you must meet reality and face up to your truths. And was my reality.
It's a really common coping mechanism at that anger. And I absolutely love the way you describe it. I was like nodding my head when you described it as a fireball, and it's almost the denial of yourself. And it's really common when you're feeling very isolated, the words that you used, and sad, and hurt. Underneath is anger becomes the coping mechanism on the top to protect you from the hurt. So it's really common. It's a really common way of coping, and I think it's it's great to hear that from you, because if somebody is feeling like that themselves, maybe they can look underneath that and see what it is that's actually hurting them. Would you relate to that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's a great point, because I think a lot of people say to me, they go, Monty, there's a steely or determination, character about you. But when they get to know you and they peel that sort of layers of onions, or we peel the layers of clothing off you, um, there's a very soft, gentle, this lovable guy, big-hearted person, which warmth of energy, which is actually who you are. But you obviously, when you're not in a great place, and let's say that inside is now really anger or you're hurt, then the outside layer is going to be like even more determined to protect that hurt by denying that I'm hurt. Instead, I'm going to be saying everything's fine. And the more I meet my hurt and the pain that I'm going through now, the emotional pain, I'll be saying, no, I'm even more better, even more better. And then I go to the gym, the more heavier weights I lift, the more boxing I do, more sparring. I'm sugarcoating what's really happening inside, that hurt inside, through exercise. And that's what then you have to meet. You have to meet that hurt and that inside. Why are you feeling hurt?
Mm. You know, when you released your book, did it help a lot because it was your truth? Because you said you could look in the mirror and be like, this is me. It's almost like I don't have to keep fighting it anymore. I don't have to keep projecting this image of myself. And I can imagine there seemed like there was so much judgment around that. And then to do a book and to put it out there, was it a relief?
I think it was a great process to go through. It was about me being obviously honest to myself, but going through my journey. This was my timeline. This was my journey. These are the different events, the stages that happened.
Mm.
And it helped me to emotionally think about, well, how did I feel at that time when I, let's say took my first test wicket? How did I feel when Gilchrist was hitting me for sixes and the decision of the wind going with the ball was just going further and further? How did I feel when I dropped that catch? How did I feel when I saved a test match? What did it feel like when I was bowling up my best? So when you go through that whole roller coaster of emotions, you're actually cleansing yourself. You actually, just like gives you much more sense of balance. And in the end, that wavy sort of waves of, ocean waves, once I finish the process, you end up this calm wave, like a nice surreal wave, and you're feeling absolutely calm within yourself, because you've gone through the journey that's very personable to you, that's very specific to you and your life.
Mm.
That's why that was really good for me.
Mm. I want to go back to a point that you made about Gary Lineker, and you said that, oh, nobody talks to him about football anymore because he's now Match of the Day presenter and all about journalism. Would you prefer now not to talk about cricket? So if I asked you, how do you look back on your England career or things like that, is for you now, is that like, I don't want to talk about those things now? Or do you see that in a really important part of your story and learning?
I think at the moment I'm still connected to cricket because I played with Jimmy Anderson, England under 19s, and he's a highest wicket taker. And I played with like Alistair Cook, played some cricket with Ben Stokes. So at the moment I still feel connected to cricket because I've got players in the England team who are like my mates, teammates who I've played with. But once they start retiring, so when Alistair Cook retired at the Oval, I felt a real massive lump in my throat, thinking that that's part of me who's retiring, because he played all my 50, we played our 50 test matches together and we made our debut together. So in a way, I was so happy for him, but in a way it was like, wow, there's a part of me retiring from international cricket as well. And the same, I think, I feel about Jimmy Anderson, because I just love watching him bowl all the time. And I remember when me and Freddie were at the Old Trafford Test match, we both sat down and I said to Freddie, I go, why do I feel so at home just watching Test cricket? And he said the same thing, same time. He goes, because I feel so at home. I feel like it feels so therapeutic just watching a red cricket ball Test matches, and you just feel like, yeah, this is what I used to do, the mind kind of remembers that this is who you were, and you sit there and you just feel so relaxed. Such a therapeutic experience going and watch Test cricket. That's one of the reasons I go there as well. I love watching Test cricket and meeting everyone, because they are all kind of part of me at some stage in my life. So then when I watch the game, it's just it reminds me of who I was when I played for England.
It's nice because you're really smiling when you're talking about that, and it's really lovely to hear you talk. So how you can still see that love that you have for the game, and I can imagine there's been so many highs and lows in that, and it's really nice to see that you can see it as a really good thing. How do you look back on it then? Is it with love, or is it with sometimes regret?
I think for me there was a lot most of the period of time with I thought I played cricket with that love energy, and with the celebrations was so evident that I was enjoying my moment, and that was I was always brought up as a youngster to say when you achieve your goals, it's like when you're climbing the Mount Everest, the first 100 meters, whatever, just take a bit of time back and celebrate this moment. Then you do the next 100, celebrate, next 100, celebrate. And sometimes we forget to celebrate our achievements. And it's so important. The mind, the body needs to recognize that when you do something good, that I'm going to reward you, maybe go to Starbucks and have a coffee and a cake, or, you know, have your favorite food, or, like whatever it is. And, and then the mind and the body starts programming that whenever I do something that is favorite to me, it means I've achieved success, and then it gives you a good rush. So it's a way of just programming the mind that this is you're doing great. You're moving forward in life. And there were times where I did that, and there was times during my cricket career where I didn't behave very well and I wasn't good. And my parents, they were like very like, even my mentor, when I met him, even he goes, I didn't raise you like this. When I taught you how to play cricket, how to behave, how to be in harmony with everyone, because to get to the top, you need to be you need the blessings of all the fans and everyone with you to get to the top of the Mount Everest. You can't do it yourself. Everyone's got to be with you to supporting that. And he was disappointed in my behavior. He goes, I didn't teach you to behave like this, and you're behaving like this right now at Essex and times at Sussex, and it's because I probably wasn't in a great place.
Yeah.
And that part of me, when I revisit that during the book, I felt disappointed in myself. I felt I let myself down. I let people of cricket, ECB, people who had faith in me at the start because I loved cricket. They got me in the England team. Then I let all of them down. It's like, this is, if I was an angry little kid, let's say, in 2006, I wouldn't have played for England because I loved the game so much. Everyone played, everyone wanted me to play and be successful. And that's why even I remember Michael Vaughan saying, when I got into that successful England team, he goes, you're a breath of fresh air. You just love cricket, and it helps all of us. It lifts us. We love it all, and that's part of me. Yeah. When I went through that journey, I was disappointed that look at the polar opposite behaviors from 2006 now in 2000 and let's say 15 or 2014. Why am I not happy with life? And here I'm absolutely loving life. And that bit does make me feel disappointed within myself.
Do you think it is something to do with the fact that you did so incredibly well, and it was just for the love of it, and then it became something else?
It was an obsession. It's like this. It's very simple. I bowl 60 balls and I take 1 wicket. Now my body and my mind knows that every 60 balls I'll get a wicket. So at some point, I'm going to get that rush of great feeling. But now it's taking me 90 balls, So then 180 balls, I'm taking 2 wickets, but 180 balls before I should take 3 wickets. So, that feeling of rush has already gone down by 30%. And it goes less a little bit more and more as your strike rate keeps going up. And where's that feeling of, you're fighting for that feeling then? And it becomes an obsession. You start training more. You can't get away from it. You just bowl, bowl, bowl. And that there's something maybe wrong technically, or there's something wrong maybe, elsewhere, tactically, or the mind or physically, that I need to maybe have a chat with coach. But sportsmen go into this zone of obsession, get completely obsessed, and they think, right, bowling more, training more will get me out of it, and then I will able to go back to my normal strike rate and perform really well. It doesn't happen, and that's where it starts dripping then the mind starts chasing that feeling of, that euphoria that you have when you take a wicket or you perform well, it's taken much longer to get that feeling. And then, yeah, the mind starts sort of, not happy. He's not happy with you now.
Yeah, starts playing tricks with you and telling you that you're not good enough. And then I
Yeah.
can imagine it just becomes a spiral. On that then, advice would you give to any younger, or what advice do you give when you're working with younger players now about how to, that obsession in a way is partly important for mindset for success, but at the same time, how do you make sure it doesn't become so obsessive that you do what you just described?
I think there's got to be that element of having a best friend in the team. At that time, I didn't really have a best friend. I remember, even Graham Swan saying to me, he goes like, apart from connecting with Monty, we didn't know how to else speak to Monty. Like if we took the cricket bit out of the way, I never used to play golf with the lads. I wasn't a great FIFA player. I wouldn't go and talk and maybe do other activities because I was so cricket obsessed, and that was my weak. That was my super strength became my weakness. So I wish I had another activity. I wish I was, good at golf and just go and, have a chat about, golf gears and the whole, swing and this and that, something else apart from cricket. So that bit I think I would advise youngsters. I'll say try and have a best mate in your team where there'll be some days, when you're playing, you're like, my bowling's not great or batting's not great. You don't may not want to talk about it with a coach, but you have a best mate you could talk to and who can help you get through the day. Other times, if cricket's not going good, get away from it. Get away from it. Have another hobby. There's so many times, even at Sussex, when I used to sit down with a sports psychologist, he used to ask me, "What are your other hobbies?" And there weren't many other hobbies. It would just be cricket, or gym, and all of that. And I wish during that time when I developed a hobby, I developed other interests. And that's why this journalism's great, because when I go onto this course, like I've got like a podcast coming out soon called Monty Meets, where I interview, sports stars, and then hopefully, I'll get you on it one
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And so this is
Favor. I'll definitely come on.
well, you got to be a sports star. So
I'm not a
you gotta,
sports star. I can do sport.
yeah.
Does that count?
If you compete in, let's say, the marathon or the Northern Run or do a triathlon, then you're allowed to come on my podcast.
Right. Well, that's me. I'm in then because that's what I do. I've got
Okay,
marathons coming
brilliant.
up. I've got triathlon coming up.
There you go. We can talk about your whole journey of being this amateur sports person and the drive to train like an athlete, because I see your posts every day. It's like every day, oh, she's gone for another run, she's enjoying her run again. That's a real commitment, isn't it? You're staying so fit, even though you're not a professional athlete.
Yeah, it is interesting because I think for me, it's something I've always done. So it's part of my routine. But I can relate a lot to what you're talking about. And even though I'm not a professional athlete, a lot of the same mindset I think I've applied to my career. And then at times it's become far too much of an obsession. And I always use running and exercise as a way, we almost started this conversation talking about that. And when you said, it gives you chance for you to think about things, and that's what it is to me. So it's a real coping mechanism, but sometimes I almost rely on it too much. And then I'm very competitive. So it's a great way to place my competitive energy though, in a healthy way. So
Yeah, I
there you go.
agree with you.
That's my very short answer, but I think it's a little bit more complex. But I do really believe in the power of running to help regulate our emotions and help, just, I don't know, for me, sometimes if my head is just a bit all over the place, going for a run just helps me smooth the river a little bit. And that's kind of who I am as a person. Like, I'm not a level person. I'm somebody that sometimes, will feel really kind of manic in the way I do things. And then sometimes I'll go so far with it that sometimes I almost just crash, and sometimes things feel very low. So exercise is a good way for me to manage that. But anyway, hang on a sec. This is not about me. This is about you. So what were we talking
Yeah,
about? Oh
I
yeah,
think
Monty
that
Meets.
yeah, this
So
is part of the Monty Meets trailer, right? And yeah, but I think that's why I connect with you really well, because you've got this mindset of an athlete's mindset, and I see that in your Twitter feeds or the posts you post up. I can see. I was like, she's training like an athlete. You are training like, you train like a sports person, right? And also, I think you're real. you really go in detail, in deep search of certain answers, and how you get there is absolutely brilliant.
Well, thanks. I just like I find human behavior very, very interesting. And I think to a level we all struggle. And I think it's just very hard sometimes to talk about it. So that's why I like to talk about it, because I think it helps. Because actually I relate to a lot of what you're talking about. Again, like, not a professional cricketer, but I can relate to that. I'm fine. I'm fine. And that kind of boiling up where, no, I'm just a strong-headed person and I'm fine and I don't need to, because it's hard to be vulnerable. And I'm honestly, Monty, so many people will relate to that. So many people. I don't think you have to be a professional sports person or whatever, because we battle sometimes with vulnerability, right? I think nobody
Yes.
likes to feel like that. So then we put on this thing and then it creates that anger that we were talking about. Anyway, I feel like we could do like an extended version of this. But on that note, what would you say to anyone that is struggling at the moment and is feeling these things that we've been talking about?
Yeah, look, I think, you need to have a coping mechanisms in place. So you got to have activities, that you have a list of things you do where you say, well, if I'm not feeling great, I'm going to pick one of these lists. So you write all the things down. Could be exercise, could be reading, could
Mm.
be writing, maybe call a friend. I'm going to talk to someone. I'm going to listen to my favorite radio station. I will, try and maybe go for a walk. Then there needs to be some sort of mechanisms, right? You need to have some activities that relate. So your body and your mind thinks, right, when I do these activities, I'm doing something to help myself. And there's a consistent pattern in doing that as well. It's not just, you're not consistent with it. So these things are so important. And I think sometimes people may not have that structure. They said, oh, I don't feel great. So what do I do? Oh,
Mm.
I'll have this internal dialogue within myself and talk and think why I'm not feeling great, rather than just say, get up, okay, let's look at the list to make me feel better. I'm going to pick one of them things, maybe reading, or maybe I'll call Charlie up because I'm not feeling good today. So I see how she's doing. And
Mhm.
that kind of stuff
Yeah.
is
What's
actually
on your list? What's on your
okay. So
list?
first thing on my list is morning gym. I've got to be in the gym in the morning. I like to be in the morning to the gym. I also, when let's say I've been overloaded with, let's say, information, or I like to listen to LBC because I like to go, because one part of psychology I learned is that be in touch with daily news. So get your mind away of what's going on. What's the daily topic today on LBC? What is the debate going on? And it gets the mind to start working then, and it gives it, you're in present with reality, what's happening around the world, which is another way of making sure you're in a good place. So I try and do that. And then there's other things which maybe I'll do some cooking, try and learn a new recipe. I'm quite good at making desserts and I have a bit of a sweet tooth myself, so try and learn some new things. So there's one of them kind of activities. I think obviously exercise is another part of me. And also I like to sit in silence. So when I sit in silence or when I read, I remember my life coach, Deepak Pasidi, passed away. He goes, when you sit in silence, when you read, it develops patience. And patience is love. Patience is love. When you're patiently sitting there and you're, let's say, biting your tongue or you're sacrificing yourself for other people, it is a form of love as well. So for when I silently sit there and I'm in silence, um, it's interesting to see how the mind quietens, very quickly, and you don't
Mm.
realize it. And other times, I love going to shopping. I'll go shopping. I'll sit in a cafe and I'll just watch people. I'll just watch what people are doing, what's going on, what is happening there, and then just you laugh at some funny jokes, or you laugh at kids misbehaving, just like running around and stuff, or whatever. And it helps you to understand the mind that this is human activity. We're here. This is real now. This is the reality. This is the pace of what life looks like right now.
Mm.
And these kind of things, just help me a lot.
Monty, thank you so much. It's been absolutely brilliant to speak to you. There's so many absolutely fantastic, brilliant things I think you've said during this, and I think it will just help a lot of people. And it's really great. Like, I appreciate your honesty, and I think a lot of people really do. I think it's very admirable, and I can't wait to listen to Monty Meets.
Thank you. Yes, please do.
Little promo there for you.
Yes, absolutely. And I've made the podcast between 30 to 40 minutes, so people go for a run. As they go for a run, they can listen to it.
Yeah, that's very true. I think a lot of people have started to listen to podcasts like when they're walking or running. I think this is a little bit longer than 30 to 40 minutes, so they'll have to go for an extra long run. Thank you so much, though, Monty.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thanks all for listening. Check out other episodes as well, including, if you like cricket, Australia cricket head coach Justin Langer. We had such a brilliant chat too, and loads more on our Apple and Spotify pages. And remember to visit sportinglife.com ahead of the rest when it comes to unbiased opinion and sports analysis. If you are really struggling, you can always reach out for help. And if a lot of what Monty said you can really relate to, there are charities such as Mind, the Samaritans, and Sport in Mind. They do understand. And you can also text SHOUT to 85258 if you don't want to talk to anyone on the phone. Take care, and we'll speak again soon.